So I have a little icebreaker question. Hazel and Jose, you are behind, or you're in line with the panel. So you're in you're looking beautiful on the screen there. Although we can only see a still image of Jose, so I'm not sure whether he's actually still with us. But in that Slido word cloud, that wonderful word cloud, the most popular word was inspiring. We heard how participation in this project has inspired girls. So I'd like to start this panel discussion by simply asking each of our participants, in no more than 1 minute, and preferably less, what inspired them. But one thing I didn't read from my notes is to say to all the participants in our contests, you inspired us. Thank you. So, panelists, I'm going to start with Jose. 1 minute or less. What inspired you?
Well, what inspired me is to realize that our topics, so geoscience in general, may really contribute for a better living conditions of many people around the world. I'm afraid that, or I think that it's really awful that we know so much about how this planet works, and we really could help people to live better. So that's what inspired me to try to raise awareness about geodiversity in general.
Fantastic. And you can interpret this question as Jose does, as what inspired you more recently, or what lit the fire. You might want to share that with us. Hazel, what inspired you?
I'm actually going to take that tack, I think. I'm very aware that we have a number of teachers with us today, both online and in the room. And the thing that really inspired me to get into geosciences in the first place was one of my secondary school teachers who took an interest in my interests and encouraged me. And that was definitely something that changed my career trajectory. I was very art focused before that and never really thought that science was something for me that I could do. And just this one teacher reaching out and encouraging my interest, it literally changed my life. And so I think just to recognize the amazing effort that all of our educators do and the amazing impact that they have had and continue to have, for me, it's critical.
Fantastic, thank you. Now I'm going to trust the panel. I'm going to pass this microphone and I'm going to expect them to pass it on after they've spoken for 1 minute.
So what inspired me actually to go into, I'm not into geoscience, but in a way I am. And what's inspired me is that when I was a small girl, going on the beaches at home in Sweden, picking fossils, looking for them and picking them up, even if I know in states you are not allowed to pick them up. But during that time, many years ago, it was allowed to pick them, and it was really fascinating, this connection between the humans and to actually to touch them, to see it, to feel the fossils. That was the first thing that made my interest. And the second one is the rock carvings. The rock carvings and the picture of the hand on the rock, that kind of things that inspired me a lot. Thank you.
I'm going to time myself. I could talk about this all day. Right. I was 13. My parents, I grew up in a town. If you've ever flown into Heathrow Airport, I just grew up outside that area. So I had very little engagement with nature. My mum and dad are from Kenya, and I was there as a 13-year-old on a holiday with my parents and walked across an ancient lava flow. It's called the Shaitani lava flow. And I still have the rock that I picked up on that day, because that was the beginning of my journey into understanding my connection with rock and the need and the want to tell their stories. The other person who inspired me was my mother. We are practicing Hindus, but she helped me to understand that nature, rock is imbued with the spirit, and that they are alive with stories, and that we should care for them.
So my inspiration is about change in communication. When I was a young scientist a long time ago, actually it was last event, I was interested in communicating with science with my colleagues and professors, so inside the science community. After that, I discovered that I can do communication with students. So people who are interested in that, we have to involve them, and we have to follow their attention. And I have to confess that I took care of most of the not really brilliant students, that the real brilliant students, to give them the possibility to achieve a level that can be inspiring also for the future generation in their work, their activity. And only in the recent years, I discovered the need to communicate to external people, so not in geology, not skilled in geology, and like citizen or stakeholders and so on. And I discovered that it's very, very difficult to raise the attention to the people who are not in your field. And there are a lot of information arriving to each of us every day. So we have to raise the attention of these people looking for strategy and looking for something that can be interesting. This is my path during the last year, and I was inspired also by the today students.
Thank you. And actually, I just wanted to talk about the speakers, because what inspires me are people, and especially passionate people that are really engaged in their work, and that are really passionate about what they are doing. Like you are talking about your research outcomes. This is really amazing, and this is something that inspires me to do what I'm doing. So translating ideas into products, translating research into real life solutions. So also to tackle the challenges that we are all discussing. So listening to people is something that inspires me.
Okay, for me, I'm really inspired that the wide spectrum of the population that he was able to involve in the project, from the youngsters to the teachers and scientists, and let's see, the huge 700,000. So I never saw that as high. So congratulations.
I will talk about what inspired me and what keeps me inspired. Okay, so what inspired me was I wanted to be a geologist when I was 7 years old, and I read that book of Julius Verne, The Mystery Island. And the guy was, it was a bad translation, but anyway, he was stupid as a geologist. He was always resourceful, always coming with a solution, and he would do anything about it. So that's how it started, and I'm quite lucky because, of course, I been some geologist. So what keeps me inspired is the lateral thinking we have when we train as geologists, and the ability to synthesize different things to provide solutions together with other disciplines. Sometimes we think that we know all. No, we don't know all, but we know a lot, and we can be part of the solution.
I'm going to copy you a bit. I'm going to talk about both. What inspired me to go into geology is going to be a very simple answer: minerals. How cool they are, all colors, all shapes, is just amazing. It still inspired me, to be honest. But really now, what really inspired me is to solve the challenges that we have. It's really, that's what keeps me going. For me, I will talk about what did inspire me some time ago. So I was born in Italy, near the Dolomites. I was very lucky. So basically, I spent almost all my life on the mountains. So that was part of my let's say goal for the future, was to have a job where I could spend a lot of time outside, where I could actually understand how these mountains perform. It was really, really, I know it was a childhood dream, and so now that it's true, I'm really happy about it. And now it keeps inspiring me all the multitude of topics that geologists cover, and that we can help to solve quite a lot of problems. They just solve them.
I can consider this question from the viewpoint of the coordinator of the ENGIE project. Because for me, it was extremely inspiring to work in a diverse environment, diverse, I mean, with different background, different geographical distribution. So this was a very exciting task to harmonize the work of these 25 partners. This is a huge number, you can imagine. So it was challenging, but I really enjoyed it, and still enjoying, of course, because I'm involved in quite a lot of international, I've been involved in quite a lot of international projects, but I have never met such an enthusiastic consortium like this one. So from here, thanks everybody who participates and contributes to the project, because it's amazing how committed, how enthusiastic, how productive this whole consortium is. So this is the real inspiration for me.
Thank you. That's great. I'm so happy that this stretched all the way along the panel. So I heard Karen say everything starts with the book. And all of you have demonstrated that in your presentations today. But I think the other message that's really come through loud and clear today is it's all about people. It's all about the way we're trained, the way we're educated, and the way we communicate with each other within our disciplines, with each other in the most general sense imaginable. So it must follow that we need a lot of highly educated and skilled geoscientists for the future. And we need to maintain their enthusiasm in the way that my enthusiasm has been maintained, and all of these people's enthusiasm has been maintained. Currently, we have a shrinking workforce, and we need it to expand. There's huge opportunity in geoscience. So I wonder whether we can ask the audience now to challenge us, those of us who made it through the fires of in some cases, in my case particularly, long careers, and maintain this enthusiasm and fire. What should we do? What should those of us who are more established in the profession do to encourage and support the next generation to join up and stay with us? So if you're online, then perhaps you can put your suggestions in the chat. And if you're too far away to actually put your hands on this microphone, I'll be able to hear you and I can repeat your suggestions. So over to you, especially if you're a younger person in the audience, but not exclusively. Ideas. Oh, I've got some ideas here. Do you want to stand up and just, I don't want to stretch.
Hello, I'm actually from the Geological Society. I'm a young person. In science, I think something that's really important to me is mentorship. So for people who've been in geoscience for longer, sharing their knowledge, being approachable, because that's something that's been really important to me. Yeah, that's what
And I'd like to say that that's been really important to me too. And I'd like the panel to raise their arm if mentoring has been informal or formal, has been important to them in their career. Yeah, it's been a unanimous, that's such an important point. Actually, thank you so much. Any other suggestions? Another one. my home team.
Geological society, I'm feeling. A real common theme between what you said and what inspired you is actually your experiences of being able to go and be in the environments that are so incredible. And I think it's going to be something that's really important, given that so many people around the world, young people live in cities, and they don't have the opportunities to be able to go out and have these experiences. So I think it's, in an ideal world, great, take every secondary child out and show them these rocks and have those experiences. But things like the work experience that people offer, showing them what people can do and what you can do and how you can interact with the environment and what you can learn from it, I think is incredibly valuable. So yeah, please do more of that.
Okay, any other suggestions?
Just a quick follow-up. I'm often surprised we don't do more actually in cities. We can do geology in cities, and there's the historical context of our thoughts. Why don't we do more of that?
Yeah, that's such an important point and reminds me of my 45 years ago, my university interview at the University of London King's College, where I studied geography and geology, joint honours. And I was asked by the professor what I had noticed about the geomorphology of the Strand. That's a street in London. And I was, what was I, 17? And I hadn't even imagined that cities had geomorphology. But of course, I was on a river terrace. And so he very generously helped me to work that out. And, you know, that was one of those moments where I realized it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's so exciting. And
my question is about raising the interest of non-interested people, because it is important that we have interested students in geosciences, but actions shall be taken immediately at the population level, and how we can spread critical information to people and make them act on an everyday basis.
yeah, so really getting the message out there. I think we're really running out of time now. Shall I stop?
Yes, I can't remember exactly when we should end.
Well,
but
I should
it's
end it.
15, so we have 9 minutes.
Okay. Are there any more burning? Ah, yes, here's one. Do you want to come over here? Then I won't sit myself. There we go.
Hi. So I mean, for me, it's a burning question. So I guess I hope that the panelists also receiving as such. First, I just wanted to make a brief remark adding on to Lena's presentation, because I thought that was very brave to start with the gender question and the meaning of gender, because that's a huge construct to untangle. But just a brief remark that also for all the audience, that gender also goes beyond the binary of men and women. And of course, it's in this case was focused for this analysis of the workshop workforce on men and women, but it goes beyond that. And then linked to that, understanding gender as a cross-cutting issue, as a cross-cutting dimension, I wanted to ask the speakers, maybe not all of them can reply, but some, how do you see or how do you perceive that the gender perspective intersects within your field? How or what would a gender perspective say about your field? Because then brilliantly talked about the mining industry, so I was also thinking about other fields and sectors that you talked. Thank you. And sorry, I didn't introduce myself. So I'm Helena Robert from the Palma Research Center, just working on the impact assessment.
Great. So the panelists might like to say a little bit about what works well in their sector and what needs to improve, perhaps, in the area of gender and gender balance.
I definitely experienced the gender issue in my career, because when I was a student, I was the only female in the group. But and when I started to work, actually I have more than 40 years of experience in university teaching. So I could see the development of this issue. And when I started to work at the university, our faculty of mining engineering was, of course, dominated by men. But I have to add that I have never, ever experienced any negative attitude or any negative experience as a female, as being a female in this profession, at least at our university. I know that there are different cases, but I can mention only my case. So I wanted to emphasize that even if there is no gender balance somewhere, the respect and the mutual respect, this is what counts.
That's very nice. No, I didn't experience, but okay, let's say that there is still some trouble. There is still a long way to go. There are a lot of realities where mutual respect is it's really enhanced, and that's I also believe that respect is the base. And we can go a long way with that. Things are changing because I can say from my short experience when I started to work at a survey, for instance, the geological survey, we were 3, 4 women, and now we are half of it. So things we bumped quite a lot in the last years. So yeah, I hope also the situation will increase also, but we're going to have more stable position, and we will try like to continue our profession also beyond the start to the position. That is one of the main issues also of women in research or in industry that reach a certain age, they are kind of forced out sometimes from the path, and they abandon geology, so for science in general. That's it, because it's a bit difficult. But things are changing, and we have to keep pushing for. I will be very brief, I promise, but I just wanted to raise 2 points. First, continuing from what Georgia said, to me what works at the moment at least is 2 things: leadership and top-down initiatives of inclusivity. People might complain that they have to balance their project proposal and so on, but that's how we start. Unfortunately, it's not ideal, but this is what we have to do because we cannot be what we cannot see, basically. So if we want more women, they're more inclusive, we have to do that. And just another point, what Helena said is really, really key, but inclusivity also goes beyond gender. And if we think we can solve these things separately, I think we're losing a big opportunity to really tackle the big challenges. So it would be nice to keep that in mind for our initiative.
Before Pavlos contributes, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Lena, who needs to go now. So thank you. Okay, Pavlos.
I also agree that the inclusivity goes beyond gender. In my own perspective, as a field-based geologist, most of my time, I think things getting improved. One thing that I want to mention is in terms of gender balance and so on, but for everyone, jobs will become more, and women also get involved more if they have the willingness to travel and be based. Jobs is something big. It's not in the office. That's my
university, I think the rate female and male in bachelor and master level is balanced, more or less. But in PhD, more lady. Realize. And another reason, that's sorry.
So I may give you a bit different perspective. So for instance, EIT Raw Materials is hiring, I know, over 70 people, And we are quite well balanced in terms of gender. Maybe not in every level, but yeah, more or less it's okay. What I may tell you is about the events that we are organizing, because we are supporting various projects, big events, and we always try to attract speakers, and we always try to keep the balance, gender balance. And in which field it's sometimes difficult to do it is when we are talking about business. So maybe this is why someone is going to research and PhD studies. And when we are inviting startups, business representatives, it's becoming a bit more difficult to ensure the balance.
A little bit about my experience. I'm teaching in an applied geology master science course. And for several years, it was noted that my discipline, hydrogeology, was conducting more female campaigns. And we were wondering about, and my note is that I was very happy to have a different perspective also by students. But in recent year, I see we note that there is a more balance between among disciplines. Engineering geology, perhaps in the past was not so powered for ladies because of the activity in open area and so on. But at the moment, in the last year, what I see is a balance among different disciplines, including applied geology and engineering geology, respect to the others, and it seems to be a very good sign.
I come to this from a different perspective. So I have multiple identities. I'm a woman, but I'm also a woman of colour. So I've had to experience barriers that some of you in this room will not have experienced yourselves. So I come from an earth science background. I have been in the field, and now I work in public communication, museums, and particularly on television as well. And I was told that I wouldn't be successful in a broadcast career because the viewers wouldn't believe me talking about science. They needed a man to talk about science. So that is one challenge that I've faced, is a kind of assumption about what I know and how I can communicate that to audiences. Secondly, I believe that our subject needs to really champion inclusion in all of its spaces. So I'm talking about disabled people, LGBTQ+, people of colour, because actually I respectfully disagree with Pavlos. I think that geology is more than going into the field. You can look at remotely sensed images, you can do computer-based modelling, you can be out in the field looking at outcrop. This is a subject that needs to be broader and more inclusive, and more of us in those senior level positions need to champion that role of mentoring, coaching, and encouraging a greater diversity of people to enter the subject.
Hazel.
Yeah, I basically agree with everything that Anjana just said. And I think that there's a part of it that I was thinking of, particularly during Lena's presentation, when she talked about this perception of the miner is this traditional machismo, manual laborer person who works underground, and how that was super outdated. And I think that idea of what a geoscientist is applies across our subject. It is often very outdated. It is often very reductive and doesn't open doors to inclusion, but shuts them. And I think this is something from our perspective, from a geoscience union, obviously we work mostly with academics. I think the thing that I would see in terms of gender is that we suffer from the early career diversification, and then as soon as you hit mid-career, that diversity just vanishes. And this is something that we're having to grapple with directly by actually looking at the data that we have and being quite willing to be uncomfortable by looking at how we're failing right now to find out how we can actually be more inclusive. Because the idea of increasing diversity in geoscience isn't just about gender, it is across the whole realm of intersectional issues around diversity in geoscience. And it's challenging and it's uncomfortable, but I think that we have to look at this if we're going to be serious about increasing the people that work in our field, because it's not just about numbers, it's about who we're including, who we're opening the door to. And a lot of that comes from a basic place of just changing the way that we see our science.
Thank you so much, everybody. So we have these people challenges ahead of us, almost more difficult, probably more difficult, and the word uncomfortable, I think it's an excellent way to describe it, of changing cultures, of keeping this pipeline going. We're successful. We've heard from the educators in the panel that their experience is a really quite successful gender balance, at least, if not other forms of diversity. But then the workplace is a different territory. There are lots of examples of good practice, but this is not a counsel of despair. This is an exciting new direction for us to follow and to channel our enthusiasm, which is here in spades in this room and in other networks and all of us are involved in. So I'd like to close this part of the day now by thanking the panel very, very much indeed, not only for their presentations, but also for their contributions to this session, and thanking all of you for your kind attention and your extremely perceptive suggestions to us old lags as to what we might do to help pave the way for the future. And now I'll hand back to Ava to close the proceedings, I think.
I didn't think that any closing words are needed after that. It was quite emotional for me. And just to repeat those words, that I would like to express my gratitude and thank you very much for contributing to the success of this conference. And again, thanks for the ENGIE consortium for the enthusiasm and commitment. And thank you, the audience, for their attention and for their contributing attitude. So thank you.